Good morning. In today's advanced networking lesson, we are going to be looking at static routing. In the previous week, we identified when we were going through the various topics that we'll be covering in this course in our introduction, we identified that we will be looking at static routing, dynamic routing, switching, and various other concepts. So, in that set of topics, we'll start with static routing today. So, this topic may be something that you have covered to some extent in your previous courses, maybe in the previous year, but we will try to add few more things to what you may have already known, and also looking a bit more in terms of how these can be configured in routers, for example. So that is how this will be structured, comparing to what you may have covered previously. So when we say routing in general is all about how different routers are going to learn about different networks so that they are able to send traffic from one router to the other. So say if a particular network is connected to a router and another network is connected to another router, how these two routers are going to learn about these different networks so that they can forward traffic across these networks. So that is basically what we do by routing. So to do that, we have two different approaches. So when we say static routing, here we are manually configuring the information about these two networks. If we have a network in router A and router B, or router 1 and router 2, we will share that information about each other's networks manually. So the administrator will have to go into the router and they may be able to configure those things manually, saying what are the connections that each of the other routers have. So that is the manual configuration, configuring static routes. With static routes, the entries are not automatically updated. Entries are updated by administrators. So that is the main thing about static routing. It doesn't react to changes, or when changes happen in the network, again administrators will have to come and make those changes. Whereas in dynamic routing, they will use certain routing protocols to share some information back and forth, and using this information sharing back and forth, they will be able to learn about the changes of networks, what are the networks each router is connected to, and so on, and they will exchange this information. So each router gets an understanding of all the other routers and networks that exist in the network. So that is dynamic routing. Here, the routing information about various networks connected to routers are learned automatically by the routers. So with dynamic and static routing, we need to know why we may want to use static routing instead of dynamic routing. Because in many ways it may seem like dynamic routing has more advantages, but there are still certain reasons why we may want to use dynamic routing. So the first one is in terms of the configuration complexity. So if we have a very large network, a large number of networks, large number of routers, so if all these things are connected in a much more complex topology or complex connectivity, then we are going to have a large number of networks to configure. So that is not a situation where we may want to use static routing. But whereas if we have a smaller network, that is somewhere we may want to use static routing. Again, similar to that complexity, when changes happen in the network also, dynamic routing is able to make changes automatically, whereas in static routing, the administrators may have to come in. But This could also be something that we may want if our network doesn't change a lot or we don't expect any changes in our network, then static routing will be fine there as well. Then when we think about the scale of the network, say for example, if we have start from a small organization and the organization changes over time and it becomes a large organization, here again we would prefer to have a dynamic routing mechanism so that when changes happen and the organization increases, it is automatically able to adapt to those changes. But whereas if we have a very smaller, simpler network and we don't expect a lot of changes or we don't expect it to be scale up, again, we can go with static routing. Then in terms of a security perspective, what happens with dynamic routing is whenever a router gets the new information and it updates itself, it will share that information with other routers. So say for example, if one of the routers can be compromised, their security can be compromised, then they can be fed some wrong information or some malicious information in terms of routing, and that can be forwarded on to other routers, and then that incorrect information can propagate through these dynamic routing protocols because they will not differentiate between what could be incorrect information. Whereas in static routing, because information is only fed by the administrator, unless the administrators make a mistake, it will not be able to compromise from a remote perspective, not in a sense, through a protocol kind of a perspective. So you may have to actively compromise all the devices to make changes to all those devices. You may not be able to just compromise one and then make that issue propagate through these protocols. In that sense also, static routing may have certain advantages. Then in terms of a resource allocation point of view, dynamic routing will need higher resources because it has to do a lot of learning about other networks and comparing and all these things. So they may need additional resources to handle these additional overheads about learning and managing that information. Whereas static routing, it may not need that much of resources, no extra resources in addition to the resources needed for routing, because there are no such overheads that are there in dynamic routing. And lastly, when we think about dynamic routing, if certain things changes in the network, if certain network paths changes and so on, if new network paths come in, these dynamic routing protocols will inform the routers about those, and the routers can make new decisions in terms of what is the direction they are going to route a particular traffic. So they may not stick to the same path that they previously had, they may change to a new path now. Whereas in static routing, we can always ensure that the network flows through a particular path by controlling the routes that we have in all the routers. So again, if that is something that we want to have certain level of predictability, certain level of control in terms of how things are routed in our network. Again, here we would use static routing, or we would prefer to use static routing here instead of dynamic routing. So as we identified, one of the main use cases to use static routing is when we have smaller networks. So when we say smaller networks, what we mean by that is these are networks that doesn't have a lot of other routers, a lot of other complexities. These are sort of simple networks. So that is one use case. Another use case that we can have to route static routing is when we have what is called stub networks. So stub networks are basically networks that exist at the very end of a larger network. So this network, a stub network, is the last point before which the devices are attached to. So beyond that, there are no further routers are attached further down here. So that is what a stub network is. In that case, what we will have is all the traffic away from this router all the traffic that doesn't belong to the network of this router will have to be forwarded away to a single destination, to a single neighboring router. In those cases also, we can simply have a static route because there's not going to be any other router possibility. So if the information is to a local network, it will route locally. If it is to any other network, it will send it to the neighboring network. So these are some of the possibilities, some of the use cases where we would want to use static routing, because we don't need to have any further complexity here, because the routing table can be much simpler in this scenario. So where we would use static routing is, so one is when we are connecting to a specific network. Say if we have a router here and we want to connect to a specific network in another router, we can directly attach a static connection, or directly attach a static routing entry and directly route to that. Or as we previously looked at, if this is a stub network at the end of the networking pathway, again we can do that. One of the other things that we can do is, say if we have a large number of routing table entries talking about different networks, it may be possible for us to combine all of those things into a singular static routing entry and share that across. And one of the other possibilities is, when we have, even when we are using dynamic routing, we can create like a backup route using a static route. So even if the primary link fails, we can use this backup route as a way to manage that. So even if dynamic routing is sort of the primary application, we may still have certain static route entries as a backup. So we will briefly look at about each of these a bit later. So then, when we think about different ways of configuring static routes, there are few different types of static routes that we can configure. So the first one is what we call as standard static route. So when we say standard static route, it is basically the basic static routing is what we call as standard static route. So we have a router, we want it to route to a different network, so we will specify what is the network and how to get there. So that is basically the standard static route. So from here we can say if it needs to go to this network, it has to go through this router. So from here, from router 2, router 1, it can say if it needs to reach this network, it needs to go through this connection. So that is basically the standard static route. Then we have what is called default static route. So with standard static route, we will specify what is the network that we want to reach and how to reach that network. With default static route, when a router doesn't know a particular way to reach a network, it can set a default way to send all the other traffic. So say for example, if a router is connected to say 3 different networks, and further down there are few other networks, and it doesn't know anything about these networks, that this router can always say, if I know about these networks, I will directly send that traffic. But if I don't know about these networks, I will always send these to this router, and then that router can figure that out in terms of how to route that further. So this router doesn't know about how to reach these networks, but when it doesn't know that, it will always send it to a default place which it assumes will know how to route. So in this case, for example, router 1 will say all the traffic that doesn't belong to its own network will be sent to router 2. So router 2 will be the default route. So in that case, the way that we will configure static route, default static route is using the network address as 0/0. So we would use 0/0 as the network address, and anything that doesn't match an existing router entry, a static route entry, will be forwarded to a default static route. So that is a end backup sort of a situation where if everything else fails, it will go to the default static route. Then another way where static route can be used is what is called a summary static route. So here what we have is, we have a number of networks, 17 21, 22 and 23. So we have 4 different networks, and all of these things from the perspective of router 1 are connected through the same router. So this same router is through which all of these different networks, all these 4 networks are connected. And with these particular 4 networks, one of the other things that we can identify is all these 4 belong to, or they can be grouped together as a network. So they are sort of sub networks that can be combined together. So in such cases, what this router can do is, it can summarize all these entries into a single static route entry. Instead of having 4 different entries for each of these networks, instead of having 4 different entries for each of these networks, it will use a single entry and send it to 172.20/14 network. So all of these entries will be combined together and sent to that particular router. So what we need to have is, we should be able to combine it such a way to summarize it. But if that is possible, from the perspective of router 1, now it doesn't need to have 4 different entries in the routing table. It can only have 1 routing entry. The other kind of static route that we can set is what is called a floating static route. When we say floating static route, what we have here is, this will be used when we have backup paths, or when we want to have backup paths. So what we have here is, we have one entry or one connectivity that is our primary connection. So that is what we would want to use most of the time. Say, for example, our organization, central office and the branch are connected through 2 links, one fiber link and then one wireless link. And in most cases, we would prefer to use the fiber link, or a dedicated private link that we would prefer, rather than a wireless link that goes through the internet. But as a backup, if the private link fails, then we may want to use the backup link. So we would normally route everything through the private link, but we will set up an additional backup route where we would specify, if the primary link fails, go through this backup. And how we would prioritize this is using what is called the administrative distance of routing entries. So when we are specifying different routing entries, and especially when we are specifying for the same destination, because these 2 routing entries are for the same destination, because both of them are going to the same endpoint. So in such situations, what we can do is, for one entry, we can say its priority is 1. The other one priority is 5, or some way of prioritizing. The way that we prioritize in this scenario is using what is called administrative distance. So what is administrative distance is, it is a numerical value that we attach to each routing entry, and this can depend on number of things. So this can be based on the number of hops between different networking points. So how many routers it has to pass through. That can be one metric. Or it can depend on what is the speed of the network, or depending on the bandwidth of the network. Maybe even sometimes the cost of the network. Because say for example, one of the networks that we have could be more expensive than the other one. So in that case, we may want to use the least expensive link most of the time. So we'll prioritize that. So we will, in terms of administrative distances, the priority will be given to the entry that has the lowest number. So when we are setting up static, like floating static routes, what we will do is, we will set the priority for that static routing entry at a number that is higher than the administrative distance of the routing that is already used in that existing routing, the dynamic routing for that example. So for example, EIGRP as a dynamic routing protocol has an administrative distance of 90. So if we want to set up a floating static route, we will set its administrative distance as 91. So there, if the 91, that static route will only be active when the link with 90 is no longer active. So when this one dies, only at that point this one will become active. So that is where we would use floating static routes as a way to implement backups to primary links. So now we will briefly look at how we can configure IPv4 static routes, and then we will also look at how we can do that for IPv6 as well. Here the thing that I want you all to remember is, the configurations to different routers, different devices may slightly differ from vendor to vendor. So these are commands that are specific to sort of Cisco routers, but other routing vendors may have slightly different syntaxes and commands. But conceptually, all of these are similar. And the expectation is you familiarize these commands by doing the packet trace activities that are provided to you weekly. So you are also expected to complete, in addition to the standard assignment submissions that you have to do, also try out all the other activities that is shared with you. So now, when we look at how we can configure IPv4 static routes, what we have here is, the basic command is IP route. So IP route is the command that we will use to configure the static routes. Then there are number of parts. So we have to have a network address, so to specify what is the destination network that we are configuring, and we will also specify a subnet mask for that particular network. So the combination of the network address and the subnet mask will give us what is the specific network that we are talking about. Then we have to say through which we will be able to send that traffic to. So again, we have two ways to say that. One is through the IP address of the other router, the next hop router to which we have to send the packet to, or through which interface of this router we have to send the packet out. So we can say what is the destination router's address, or what is the interface through which that router is connected to. And in addition, as an optional value, we can also include the administrative distance. So the administrative distance may be added at the end of this command to specify if that static route needs to be prioritized highly or below, depending on our requirement. So when configuring these next hop routes, we will have a number of ways to do that. So when we are configuring, say for example, from router 1 here, from router 1, if we want to set up a routing to router 3, what we will have to do is we have to say the traffic needs to go to router 2. So that is the next hop that we are configuring. And we will have 3 different ways of configuring this next hop. So the first way is by giving the next hop IP address. So here we are just giving the next hop IP address, and based on that IP address the traffic can be forwarded. The other one is using the router exit interface to say what is the exit interface through which we have to send the information, send the packets to. Or we can use a combination of these two together. So not just the IP address, we will use IP address and the interface. So the basic command to configure next hop using the IP address is basically IP route. We specify the network with the network address and the subnet mask, and we give the IP address of the next router. So we give the IP address of the router as the next hop IP address. When we want to configure, say, using interfaces, directly connected interfaces, here what we will use is same command IP route. We'll specify the network using the network address and the subnet mask, and we'll specify the interface through which it is connected. So we'll specify the interface through which we are connected. Then what we can say as fully specified static route, that is basically the combination of next hop static route and directly connected static route. If we do both of those things together, that becomes the fully specified static route. So here what we do is we specify IP route, the network and the subnet. We specify the interface and also the network address. We specify the net interface and also the IP address for the router. So if we do both of those, that becomes a fully specified static route. Then when we think about configuring default route, it is not that different from configuring, say, any other static route. The only point that differs is when we will change the way that we specify the destination network. Instead of having a specific network address for the destination, we will have 0/0 network. So that is, we will write as 4 zeros and 4 zeros. So that is the way that we would specify the default static route in IPv4. So as we previously looked at, we will use this when we don't have any other resort, any other static route entries are there. For this will be the last resort of a routing point where all the traffic will be forwarded to. So in this case, if we configure default static route in, say, R1, and if R1 doesn't have any packets that are matching any entries that it has, it will always forward those packets to this particular router. So we will specify this, and that is the default static route that we have. So now we will briefly touch upon how we can configure IPv6 routing, IPv6 static routing. It is largely similar to IPv4, but these two protocols will run separately in a router. So in a router, IPv4 routing has to be configured separately and IPv6 routing has to be configured separately, and both of them can exist in parallel, and both of them can be configured if we want in different ways. Say for example, for IPv4 we can have a dynamic routing protocol and we can use static routing only with IPv6, or the other way around. or both of them can have static routing. So that is up to our discretion as sort of network administrators. And the basic command is largely similar, except for we have a slightly different main command to say it's IPv6 route that we are configuring instead of IP route. And the way that we specify the network and the destination router or the exit interface are largely similar. And one of the other things that we will have to do is, depending on the routers, a number of them may not have IPv6 routing enabled by default. And if that is the case, we may have to use this IPv6 enabling command, which is IPv6 unicast routing, to enable IPv6 routing before we can actually configure IPv6 routing. So if the router is not configured, or if IPv6 routing is not enabled in the router, we'll have to first enable that before we can actually use that. So then, with regarding to how we actually would configure these, in IPv6 also we'll have the same options of configuring. So we can do next hop routing configuration using the IP addresses. So here what we can do is we can use the like next hop static routing, directly connected static routing, or fully specified static routing, similar to what we did in IPv4. So with next hop static routing using the IP address, what we would have is the configuration command would specify the network like this. We will specify the network using in this manner, and then we will specify the IP address of the router. So the IP address of the router, the network, and the command. Very similar to the structure of how IPv4 works, but here the commands are slightly different, and the way we write the network addresses are slightly different. Then if we are using directly connected mechanism to specify what is the interface it is connected to, so here what we will have is we can specify the network and the interface. And one of the advantages in using interfaces is because there's no need to do any IP lookup before forwarding traffic. So it doesn't have to figure out what is the sort of IP lookup is not necessary, and traffic can be forwarded directly. So that is directly connected static routes. Then the fully specified configuration is again similar to IPv4. The difference is here again they are specified slightly differently, but we have the interface and the IP address of the router both configured here in fully specified static IPv6 route. Similarly, we can also configure default static route in IPv6. Again, the commands are largely similar. Only main difference is how we specify the zero network host. Like in IPv4, we specified 0/0 network, and the way that we did it in IPv4 is it's 0.0.0.0.d0 for both network and subnet mask. Here in IPv6, we would use :/0 as the way to specify the default route. So other than that, conceptually it is similar, and even configuration wise it is largely similar. So with that we can also specify, say, like static routes, for example, like floating static routes. And one of the things to remember about floating static routes is the main sort of difference between floating static routes and others is the way that we would want to specify the administrative distance. So as we previously looked at, in floating static routes, the priority of the chosen link, so the backup link, will have to prioritize less from other routing possibilities or other routing protocols or so on, or even static routes. We want to bring the priority of the backup link further down, so we'll have to bring it to a number that is below other routing entries that are there. So if we use other static routes without any priority set, any administrative distance set, the default administrative distance is 1. And then if we are using certain routing protocols, there the administrative distance could be, depending on different routing protocols, the numbers could be different, the administrative distance could be different. Then if we want to set a static route here, we would have to say, if we are using say OSPF for example, if OSPF is the protocol that we are using, if you want to prioritize something below that, we'll have to choose a number that is below 110. So that is how we would specify floating static routes. Then when we want to configure floating static routes, both in the case of IPv4 or IPv6, again, depending on what we are configuring, the way that we specify that is by giving the administrative distance. So in this case, we are giving an administrative distance of 5. So that will prioritize, say for example, here we have 2 ways to connect to router 1 can connect to router 2 or router 3, and our preference is connecting to router 2. So what we would do is, for the connection that is there for router 2, we would have no priority or its administrative distance become 1, whereas for the link that is connecting to router 3, we will increase its administrative number, so its priority goes down, so it is less prioritized. So it is less than 1, 5. So in that case, it will not be chosen as long as this one is active. When that link is no longer active, then this link will be chosen. So that is how we configure floating static route, and very similar between IPv4 and IPv6. So when we are configuring static routes, we will also have one other possibility of configuring and using static routes, that is to configure for static host routes. So static host routes are routes that we will normally use for configuring to like host devices, say for example like a server or something like that. So here we will use what is called a static host route. So, and when we will use static host route is, for example, this server is normally connected to this network through a particular link. So it is normally connected through this link, through this router. So that is the normal standard connection that we have, and that is the one that we want to have. But it is possible that we may have certain redundant pathways within the network, so that if that particular link fails, we still are able to reach this host. But even though that is possible, we may want to say we would prefer it to be routed through this link than this link. So to do that, we may be able to specify a specific way to reach that device. So here we are not routing to a network, routing to a specific network, but rather a single device. So because we are routing to a single device, the main change that is going to happen is in terms of the commands that we are going to use. Within the routing command, instead of specifying the subnet mask as a very specific subnet mask, we will use 255 in IPv4 or /128 mask in IPv6. So we will specify it as a single host, not as a network. So it's a single host, single device network in essence. Other than that, it is essentially very similar to any other static route. The main difference is we are configuring route, but not to a larger network, but to a single device. And we will use this mainly when we have multiple redundant links to connect to that particular device. So now we will briefly look at what happens when a packet arrives from a computer to a router and how this static routing will handle these packets that are passing through different routers. So here we are starting from a scenario where PC1 is sending a packet to PC3. So that is what we are trying to manage, and how that traffic is going to flow is through coming to router 1, router 2, router 3 and to the device. So that is the pathway that we are going to look at, and we are going to see what each of these routers are doing in terms of the packets. So when we take router 1, we identify that router 1 doesn't have a specific route to this network. So this is the network of PC3, and router 1 doesn't have any routing entries to that. Because of that, it will choose its default route to router 2. So here it is not choosing a specific route it is going to choose the default route, saying it doesn't have any specific routing entries for that. So then the packet is encapsulated as targeted to router 2, and then it is forwarded through this particular interface. So it's received here and the router checks and it is sent out here. Then when it arrives at router 2, again router 2 will de-encapsulate the packet and it will see where the router needs to go to, where the packet needs to go to. And for router 2, it has a static routing entry to that particular network. For this particular network, it has a static routing entry through this interface. Because it has a specific interface where it can forward the traffic to, it will forward the traffic to that interface. So what it will do is it will take that packet, again it will encapsulate again to that particular router, particular destination, and it will forward it there. Then when it comes to router 3, when it arrives at router 3, it can de-encapsulate and see it is for a network that is directly connected to a particular interface of that router. So this particular network is directly connected to this interface. So router knows it is directly connected and can send it there. And additionally, router 3 can also look up the ARP table to identify the specific MAC address there, because it is belonging to the network that it belongs to. So it can identify that as well for PC3, and it will encapsulate that information as well and forward it across to PC3. So that is basically how we will be able to, how packets will be processed when we are using static routes across multiple routers. So finally, one of the things that we will have to do is, because static routing is something that we manually configure, all of the routing entries are manually configured by an administrator, there is greater chance for errors to be made, because we are manually configuring each of the networks, each of the possibilities. We may miss some networks, we may misconfigure certain networks, we may say particular network can be connected through router 2, but in fact it may not be. So there can be certain issues like that, additional issues, because we are manually configuring them. So to manage that, we will use certain troubleshooting commands to identify problems. The first command that we use is a very common command in sort of any networking application. So that is the ping command. We will use the ping command if we want to see if there is a connectivity between two hosts. So from one to the other, we will ping between two networks, two hosts. Then we can also use traceroute to see how routing happens from a starting point to an end point. If we traceroute, it will say what are the different pathways it is passing through to reach the destination. So we will use that as well to see how the routing happens. Not just routing is happening, also to see how the routing is happening. Then when we have configured a large number of static route configurations, we can go into the router and see what are all the different configurations that are there using the command show IP route. So with show IP route, we will be able to see what are the different router configurations that are there. We can also use the show IP brief command or show CDP neighbors command to see what are the other devices that are attached to this particular router, and also compare that with what are the routing entries that we have attached to there. So these are some of the commands that we are likely to use when we are configuring our network. When we are configuring static routes, we will also use these troubleshooting commands to figure out if we have made any mistake and identify what those mistakes are. So with that, we come to the end of our lesson on static routing. So we have looked at various different possibilities of configuring static routing, different types of static routing configurations, and different reasons or applications why we may want to use static routing. So the other thing to remember is not just static routing, any other lesson that we will have in this module, it is going to be largely based on how much you are also able to practice. Because there's quite a lot of things about configuring devices and so on, but there's no point in me opening a command line and configuring in class, because that is something that you will have to do by yourself. Just looking at me doing is not useful. So for you all to be familiar with these commands, familiar with how these things are done, I would highly recommend that you do all the packet tracer activities that are shared with you on LMS. Even though the requirement is to submit only one of the packet trace activities, it would be highly advisable that if you can practice all those packet trace activities. And even from previous batches, the experience is the students who practice all these things will get higher understanding, higher exposure to various concepts, and better understand these concepts, and are able to perform well in exams, in practices, and also in terms of dealing with, say, for example, in an interview perspective, to explaining something to someone. Anyone who is practicing these things more will have a better chance of understanding them more. So I will highly recommend you do that. Do all the packet trace activities that is shared with you. And in most cases, it is not going to take much time. So you will be able to do them in a shorter period of time as well. So that is all that we have for today. In the coming weeks, we will look at dynamic routing and also various other routing protocols as well. In the meantime, as I said, go back to LMS, get the resources there and practice and learn on your own. And if you have any questions, please let me know. You can contact me even during the non-class times through email or any other means. And I will try to assist you if you have any issues. And also, if you have any particular feedbacks or thoughts about this class, please let me know as well. Other than that, that's all for today. See you next week. Thank you. Bye.